Michigan USC was a classic, a 4.5 Chalai Classic. I bordered on making this our first 5 Chalai Classic of the season. Who knows, man? Maybe it was. Whew! This one was down to the wire. Everything we thought we'd get. Now, I couldn't help but notice, as you hear that phrase come out of my mouth, a lot of you did not get what you thought you were going to get here. I couldn't help but notice the jarring gap in reaction. There were some people genuinely stunned at this outcome. And as Meemaw used to always tell me, Joshua, reaction is based on outcome mixed with expectation. And so what was the outcome? Michigan wins the football game. But Colin, I guess the second part of that equation is we've got to find out what our expectation was. Let's roll it. And then I think about the story and the lessons that college football teaches me every year around this time, around week 3 and week 4. I think somehow Michigan's going to find a way to win this game outright. I know that doesn't compute right now. This is college football. This is the way it works. A team like Michigan, with the pride of that program, does not get double-digit losses hung on them 2 times in September at home. History. Know your history. That is not the way the sport works. USC is much improved. But USC's run defense did not meet the freeze point. First freeze point reference of the year, probably not the last. The freeze point is what we use on this show, loosely stolen from college football nerds, but properly applied on this show, to describe the minimum baseline standard you have to be in a certain aspect of this sport in order to contend. So, for instance, with the run defense, just pretend it's a thermometer. Okay, we're trying to get to freezing, 32.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's say last year you were 60 degrees. And this year you're 38. You've improved significantly. But it doesn't matter, because until you get to 32.4, that water is liquid just like it was last year. And similarly, USC's run defense, USC's overall level of physicality and offensive line, defensive line play in general is better than it was last year. Their run defense is better. Their tackling is better than it was last year. But it did not meet the freeze point to play a team like Michigan. And I don't find that all too difficult to have seen coming. Now, even if that was the case like it was in this game yesterday, that did not guarantee a Michigan win. But what it did guarantee is a Michigan game, a Michigan afternoon. It guaranteed USC was going to have to win playing Michigan style of ball in their backyard with Michigan's back against the wall already. And at the half, Michigan had 199 to minus 16 rushing yardage advantage. That's worth a paper pop because that's one of the padlock stats of this game. And it was immediately glaring. If you were watching or if you were at the game, it was immediately glaring. Yeah, it looks like that team in blue still got a pretty significant edge on the line of scrimmage. Oh, it's really apparent that team in blue has still got a pretty sizable edge on the line of scrimmage. Now, last year, this game would have been a lot uglier. Yesterday, it was ugly at times, but when you play that style, the trade-off with trying to win a game with brute physicality and just saying pass, can't even spell the word, much less try and use it as a play, the risk you run is you better be perfect doing it. Because you can dominate a team physically, but because of that style and what it entails, it could still be a one-possession game. And that's what it ended up being yesterday. This is insanity. This is like the bad luck stat of the year. Bad luck stat is a padlock stat that's misleading. Alex Orji starts at quarterback for Michigan, which we liked. We liked the move. We thought it was going to clear some things up for him, and it did. So you look at this, and you see Alex Orji was 7 of 12 for 32 passing yards. What, in the first quarter? No, that's the game. That's the game. This is not a service academy team either. Like, theoretically, they believe in the forward pass. But when they announced Alex Orji was going to be the starter, what did we talk about on the Tuesday show? I said, they are going to look horrifically bad throwing the ball. But they already did. And in the aggregate, they were actually hamstringing themselves from doing the only thing they can do at a high level, and that is running the ball. This had to be a radical offensive approach. It had to be a radical offensive game plan. And what I mean by that is it took Michigan looking in the mirror and saying, we suck throwing the football. We're terrible. And our best receiver, Colston Loveland's going to be out this game. We shouldn't throw it. We shouldn't throw it. Don't throw the ball. We're just going to run it. And we're going to rely on the fact that We watched this guy get taken out behind an alley and beat to literal death last year. That was USC football last year. So the guy goes and gets taken out behind an alley and gets the fool beat out of him, and that was like 2 months ago. And so all we know about him since then is he got himself a gym membership, and we hadn't seen him for 2 months. If you're Michigan, you think to yourself, well, it's 2 months. It's not 5 years. Like, how much stronger could he be? How much different could it be? I'm going to bank on the fact that that short amount of time has not turned this guy into Schwarzenegger circa Predator. And so I'm going to take the sledgehammer to his face again. And they did. And it worked. Not quite as effectively as it would have last year, but it still worked enough for him to win the game. They just cleared the mechanism. They did exactly what Kevin Costner did in For Love of the Game. Baseball movie, but it still applies. You stand on that mound, you're in Yankee Stadium, 50,000 people, full throat, and you just breathe in, and you breathe out, and you clear the mechanism, and everything goes quiet. It's what Michigan football did. And they realized we aren't that thing. We can be this thing. It's the only way we're going to swim instead of sink. Clear the mechanism, forget about what anyone says about it, and let's just play our style. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. We still think we're pretty good defensively. We still think we can run the ball pretty well. Let's see what happens. Well, they did it. They did it, and they ended up winning the game. But I got to tell you something about USC. Judging by what I saw from my text and whatnot, I must have watched a little bit of different game. I watched this whole game this morning on the flight home, and I watched a lot of it yesterday in the stadium leading up to kickoff. Miller Moss is a stud. Miller Moss went 28 of 51 in this game for 283, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And that's not the most pop-off-the-sheet stat line in the history of this sport. Nick Bumgardner with The Athletic put out this stat to give you a little context. He had 55 dropbacks in this game and was pressured 24 of those. And still had him in the game, still put them up with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That 3rd and 16 throw to put USC up after all that. Minus 16 rushing yards at the half. You're just getting beat on and beat on and beat on. You got a guy back there getting beat on and getting harassed constantly, and he has got you with the lead. With the lead midway through the fourth quarter. USC last year would have been down 45-16 in that spot. Michigan would have been able to name the score and roll in the backups, get some walk-ons work, and USC would have been pantsed on national television because physically they would have been over. And they didn't. And they certainly weren't physically up to the challenge, but they were a whole heck of a lot more competitive than they ever could have been last year, to the point where they got the lead. People will talk about this game. You watch and see what I tell you. People will talk about this game like it was total and sheer domination, and it was all Michigan. It wasn't all Michigan. If it was all Michigan, they wouldn't have been trailing halfway through the fourth quarter at home. It was a really, really hard-fought game. You got teams' strengths and weaknesses very much on display here, and Michigan gets the better of them. But this thing's like 45-16 last year. And so afterwards, I watched the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, so I'm not really getting feedback on this game until well afterwards. I get back to the hotel at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I turn on the TV, and I don't know what show was on, but I turn on TV well after the game's over, and the first words out of someone's mouth are something along the lines of, well, one of the things we found out today is USC's not a Big Ten championship contender. Dude, USC's more of a championship contender in the Big Ten than Michigan is, and they just lost to them. Like, what? I don't know what people think they saw yesterday. I know what I saw. I saw Michigan play their game. I saw Michigan just repeatedly punch USC in the mouth to the point where you're saying, how are they still getting up? And I saw USC take all that, have the lead in the fourth quarter, and then lose on a 4th and goal with time almost expiring. That's the shift in perception based on one play in this sport is totally insane. Like, people are out of their minds. You know good and well, the same folks who are going to tell you Michigan dominated this game and it was not even a contest, if Michigan doesn't convert to 4th and 1, are telling you, boy, USC, night and day different. Lincoln Riley, early contender for Coach of the Year. Dude, what a Stones moment for the USC football program to go in there and gut it out and get that win. They played the same game. Difference is one play. One play matters because the outcome matters. Does it make them a totally different team or program? Does it make them capable or incapable of vastly different things because of that? I don't think so. And let me remind you of something else. It's a long season, first off. Secondly, let me remind you that Michigan's still got Ohio State and Oregon, and USC plays neither one of them. So if anyone thinks the loser of this particular game yesterday is out of Big Ten contention, if not mathematically, then in theory, and the winner is, I don't know what we're watching. We're watching different sports, I guess. USC's got a stud quarterback, and in time, I think he's going to give them a chance to win the remaining games that they play. They may lose 2 of them for all I know. But they were in this one yesterday. They already won one in week 1. And so I did not change my opinion of USC at all. Michigan validated what I thought about them because I thought they'd win the game. And by the way, I don't want to gloss over how huge a moment it was for Sharon Moore. It calmed a lot of the nerves up there. I think from a recruiting standpoint, you probably needed that one. You needed it because you needed to be able to sell some proof of concept in year 1 under this new staff because opposing staffs on the recruiting trail, all they can do so far is say, well, yeah, I mean, it's Michigan, but all the good parts of Michigan are gone. Like, these new guys, that's not Michigan. Well, yesterday, that's Michigan. So it's really fundamental from that standpoint. But the future of both of these programs this year, these teams, not programs, these teams this year, still got a lot to play for. I think USC's ceiling's higher than Michigan's this year. And they went and lost to him yesterday. That's okay. That happens sometimes. But I don't think an ounce less of USC. I don't think their offensive line's good. I don't think from a developmental standpoint, I don't think that unit is up to the standard it should be at USC. So I'm not heaping praise on them. Like there are fundamental aspects of that team that are flawed. Whoever thought that it would be anything different than that this year? I think they've improved quantum leaps defensively. They are what they are on the offensive line, and maybe that cost them. Maybe it will. But, man, I'd much rather take my chances with the crew I saw yesterday than the one I saw various times last year.